What's up, guys? This is another episode of Off the Post. I'm your host, DJ Red Camping Cat, and we are going to do not a recap, but we're going to actually do a preview today because we have a big game tomorrow. As you know, it is the NWSL final, so we're all pretty excited about that. There's two teams in it that I don't care about, but I think some of the panelists from that have been on other shows do care a lot about them, right? What is it? Seattle? I don't know. You guys know? I really don't care. But
That would be one, yeah.
it's not the Spirit and it's not the Flash, so I guess we'll just talk about it anyway. Bias. So you can trust us with that. Also, we're going to give away something to the winner of. We're going to do a predict the score. You're not going to like the prize we're giving away, but it will be funny. So and I'm definitely going to mail it to you, so it's going to be even funnier. Let's see what everyone's been up to lately. Courtney, what's been up?
Oh, just hanging around, doing homework, being a badass. No, I don't know. I don't know why I said that. No, I'm not being a badass. No, I'm just hanging around, just, all that.
Sounds good. Thank you. We appreciate it. And that Spirit fan, the most popular person on the show, what have you been up to?
Being not the most popular person on this show.
No, you might be.
We're apparently getting hit by a hurricane next week, so that'll be fun.
So this is the end of. Oh, well, that's good to hear that. I guess we're gonna rant about that hurricane a bit, or we might cheer it on. So
no, listen. She's gonna be magical though, and it's just gonna blow on by, and everything's gonna be fine.
Only house standing.
No, I'm actually hoping it hits us because then we might get class canceled on Monday. So.
The only person in the world who says, "I hope a hurricane hits us," Jen Carr, ladies and gentlemen.
And that's how we do things now. Post. We wish the worst on colleges. Now let's continue on. If you have anything you want to say to us, you can use the hashtag WosoTalk, or you can send us a message on Facebook. I guess we'll jump right into things, and we're going to talk about the NWSL Championship game. Yay! As you can see, it must be a bunch of fans that teams didn't make it here. So we're going to start with talking about each team a little bit. We're going to say, I guess we can say a lot of us expected this or probably didn't expect this. Jen Carl, did you expect Seattle to make it this far?
I think I did. I think I expected Seattle to make it this far, just because they've been so dominant. I mean, they were dominant all last season. They were dominant this season, even from the beginning. You could see it. They didn't have a whole lot of new players on the roster, so they were pretty much coming in ready to go. So I'm going to say, yeah, I kind of expected Seattle to make it this far.
Courtney?
I mean, ultimately, at the thought of it varied throughout the season. At the beginning of the season, I definitely thought, they were the most, I feel like, unchanged team overall. They had the majority of their folks coming back. So I think at the start of the season, I definitely thought, well, yeah, absolutely, they're gonna be in the final, blah, blah, blah. And I think that kind of changed throughout the season. I think there were some points where they were playing really well, and I was like, all right, yep, this is happening. And then there were some points where, they were not playing so well, and either just, maybe they were getting wins, but they were kind of scraping by, or I know, early in the season they tied Sky Blue, which, Sky Blue was doing well at the beginning of the season, so maybe that's why. But, they had a lot of draws. We're not necessarily playing the best. So I think at some point I was kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe they're going to make it, maybe they're not. But I think, ultimately as the season went on, you could kind of tell that they were going to be in the final. I would have hoped, I thought the Spirit would have given them a bit more of a run than they did. They did, in the first half. They had a good first half, and then things kind of, drifted off. But ultimately, I'm not really surprised that their talent, their roster is, insane. So.
Yeah, I agree with you with that. They were the one team that looked like they were bent on a championship run, and we're going to try to go back because especially after what happened last year, had such a good season, and then they lost at the very end, and it looked like this year they went once they turned it on and finally unstoppable in every game they played. So they definitely looked like the team that was going to be here, in my opinion, out of the two. Now I guess we can talk about FC Kansas City. What were your thoughts on them, Courtney?
See, them, I wasn't really sure about them because I think they did, especially early in the season, they struggled a lot. And so I kind of remember looking at that team being like, man, especially the couple games where the national team players were still here, they have the most like U.S. allocations, and they were not playing well. And I think at that point it was kind of like, well, the national team players haven't been in a lot of preseason, and are they messing things up or things like that. But I think they're obviously through the season they kind of had their ups and downs, and I honestly thought again that Chicago was going to give them a lot better run than they did. Like I really thought Chicago could challenge them to make it into the final, but like ultimately after the World Cup and things like that, they started to really get their crap together, and we're getting the wins and things like that. So, I don't know if they were a team like throughout the whole season that I was like, oh, they're going to be in the final, but I definitely had thought they would be in the playoffs, and so I'm not entirely surprised that they're back here, but they weren't necessarily as clear cut as some may have thought, or definitely as Seattle was.
And your thoughts, Jim Carl, on FC Kansas City?
I did not think they were going to make it to the final. I thought, like Courtney said, they would make it to the playoffs. I actually, and I'm not just saying this because I'm biased, but I actually thought the Spirit might make it into the final with Seattle, just because of our consistency as opposed to Kansas City. Unfortunately, we just kind of trailed off at the end there. But, I don't... There may have been one point during the season that I was like, that maybe we'll have a Seattle-Kansas City rematch. Just kind of as a fleeting thought. I didn't think it was going to actually happen, and it's happening. So
it's one of those to me where it was like I didn't have any faith in FC Kansas City at all this season, to be honest with you, because they were so consistently boring, as a lot of people considered them. They were like, what's her name? Karen said this a lot. They were pretty boring to watch. It was true.
What's her name?
Karen?
Wow.
Oh, did I say her name? Okay.
You did, but you should call her what's her name first. We love you, Karen.
You gave me a minute head to process. Like, yeah, that's the one. But she was right, though. They were pretty boring to watch at first, and they just didn't look like a team that had they had the firepower, but it didn't look like they were actually going to put it together to go and make a championship run. I was like you, Jen. I thought it was going to be the Spirit to make it, but then they got a rough. I said the luck of the draw ended up bad for them, and they ended up having to play Seattle in the first playoff game, so it was unlucky for them. But it really, in my opinion, was going to be, I was looking for a Spirit Reign type final because they were the two best teams throughout this whole season, because Chicago kind of tailed off, and FC Kansas City was just enough to get by. So it's interesting that we do have this rematch so far. But I guess speaking of these teams, because Seattle is one team that was more exciting than the other, are there any memorable moments from either side you can remember? We'll start with you first, Jim Carl, this season.
Yeah, for me, actually, my Seattle memorable moment was in the playoff game. And I hate to say it, I really do, but it was when Bev came on and scored that goal and just kind of opened up the floodgates for Seattle. We had the chance to talk to Bev and having that opportunity, and then seeing her go out there and, kick some major butt like that was pretty awesome, even if it was against my team. So I think for me that was the most memorable thing, just seeing her come off the bench and immediately make an impact like that.
And Courtney, is there any memorable moments from either of the teams that stood out to you this year?
I have one, maybe two from one team, one from another. I think for Seattle, not just in the game against the Spirit, but in general, watching Bev just kind of come out and be amazing was great to see. Because even before we had her on the show, she was one of the people when we did I did an abroad series last year. I wrote about the players that were abroad, and she was someone who was doing really well in Japan. That I got to read, that I was kind of writing about, and so I was really glad to see her have a really solid season this year. And then again, especially coming back, she missed a couple games, and to come back in the semifinal and just score immediately. That and Kim Little's hat trick, it was against Houston, I believe, where she just made people look silly. Sorry, Houston fans and folk, but that was just crazy skill. And then, Kansas City is so boring, but Yaya's free kick goal, she got a goal from a free kick at some point in the season, and it was just outstanding. So that's my memory from Kansas City, because that's the one thing I can think when I think Kansas City, I think back to that, and I'm like, holy crap, that was an amazing goal.
Yeah, for me, I agree with you. I didn't even think of that, because I was struggling trying to figure out one for them, and I just kept thinking of more so players that stood out, like how Amy LaPelbit had such a great season, because I couldn't think of just a moment in the game where I was like, well, they're fun to watch. This is really exciting, because there wasn't any, to be honest, other than the Yaya for super kick. But other than that, I had the same one, actually, the Houston game where Kim Little basically gave all of them nightmares for the rest of their life, and they don't want to see her again. She just tears Houston up every time she plays them, it seems like. So that was so good, because there was so much skill involved, and it looked like everyone remembered Kim Little a bit. So those are good moments, very good moments. I guess now we can talk about the teams. This is the major part of our preview. We're going to talk about each team's a little bit of strengths, weaknesses, what we think they could do to win the game, and so forth. We're going to start with Seattle, naturally, the team that is, I guess, trying to come back and get a shot at the championship. We're going to start with you, Jen Carl. What does Seattle have to do to win this game?
Yeah, I think the reason why I was looking forward to maybe a Seattle-Washington final was because I feel like they have very similar mindsets. Because I've been watching the Spirit, obviously, all season, and then I look at Seattle, and I'm like, oh my god, the Spirit are like a mini version of Seattle, because they run into the same problems. The problem that Seattle has mostly, they have immense talent. They work brilliantly together as a unit. Each of their lines can just connect so well. The D can shoot it up to a forward if they have to. The forwards can pass it back. The midfield is seamless. But they get frustrated. They get inside their own heads. They start causing problems internally. And that's when a team like Kansas City can come in and make chances. So I think for Seattle, they just need to stay focused. They need to not get frustrated, not let themselves, keep themselves from winning this final. And maybe it's a bold call for me here, but I think this is Seattle's game to lose. It's very obvious to me that Seattle's been the better team this season. I think it's been obvious to everybody since we sit here and consistently call Kansas City boring. But they just need to bring it together and keep themselves where they need to be.
I agree. And mind you, people, we call them boring, but I remember I was saying with FC Kansas City, I kept saying that every game I would choose them to win, because I was like, well, they're going to win most of their games. They were just boring to watch. It's not a bad thing. They won, but they were just extremely boring. Courtney, your thoughts on what Seattle has to do to win?
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I think just making sure that you utilize, your options and just kind of have a backup game plan, because I know everyone thinks Seattle's game plan is, get it down the field, strength through the midfield, get it to Kim Little, and I think there have been teams that have done a really good job shutting down Kim Little, and I think that and they've other people in the midfield and the forwards have done well with, like you said, Bev has been great. Obviously, Fishlock and Rapinoe also are there. But just they need to be prepared to have to take more of a role, because I think everyone's idea is Kim Little, Kim Little, Kim Little. But people know that now. People know that Kim Little is going to do crazy things if you give her the chance to. But I think that they just need to be prepared that someone's going to be shutting her down, especially when you look at the defense of Kansas City. You mentioned Amy LaPelbit, and just their defense in general has been really solid. So
yeah, they have.
I think that they just need to have a backup plan. Get it to Kim Little is not going to be a thing. I think even, Bev, people understand that if she's in there, she's dangerous. So I think they just need to be prepared to have to rely on other people on the field, which is, like Jen said, they work so well together. I could see them being able to adjust and do that. And I think just not getting frustrated. I know, again, sometimes, I've said this before, sometimes Hope Solo kind of gets in her own little head, and, sometimes if you put it on target and it gets by her, she gets kind of frustrated also. So I think a lot of what Jen said is just them having to keep their head in the game. We've seen a lot of maybe tempers flaring from Seattle this season, and so if things start to get chippy or anything like that, I think they need to just kind of not let that get to their head and not let them get so fired up about it, and just kind of keep a calm head and focus on the game.
I agree with all those points. You're right, and it's really going to be a mental thing for them, especially with the fact that they're coming back in a rematch from a game they lost last year, when they were really dominant last year. So coming back again to this type of game, and now the difference is actually in Portland, so it's in their rivals' place. So this might be a little even more of a hostile crowd towards who knows. And it's just if they can just keep it's a mental game for them really, because they're going to keep putting their pressure on them. And the thing is with FC Kansas City, they have so many great players in their team, they're going to be able to break that pressure at times. But just keep at it, and not just rely on Kim Little. Look to have your other players get involved because they're going to focus on Kim Little. That's probably a major part of the game plan. They should be able to win this game easily. They've been more than successful at doing that the rest of the season. I think they'll be able to do it in this game against SC Kansas City team that sometimes has its own issues, but I'll get into that shortly. Let's talk about some key players that will have to stand out, Courtney. Who do you think needs to stand out for Seattle to win?
Excuse me. Like I kind of mentioned, Jess Fishlock, Megan Rapinoe, Bev Goebel. I think, their defense also, because they do have the speed of like Amy Rodriguez and Heather O'Reilly on the side. So I think those players, the players who do think people are going to have to stand out, I think will stand out. And then I just mention the defense also, just because, like I said, as uninteresting as their play has been, they do have Kansas City does have a lot of potential. They have someone like Ava Bush who can put it in from a crazy distance, and then they have Holiday and Rodriguez and O'Reilly. I'm sure we'll talk about them in a minute, even further. But they just need to be aware that they have a lot of different, and I'm sure they are. They've played them. They've sure have watched them throughout the season. But they have just to be prepared to know that Kansas City has a lot of attacking options, not specifically just from attackers. So just to be prepared for that and to have the defense be on their toes. And again, if Little gets shut down, the rest of the midfield and anyone else they might have up top are going to have to be on top of it and be prepared.
Jan, what lesser-known players do you think need to stand out? Someone that we probably haven't mentioned yet.
That's tough because at this point of the season, I feel like we've probably seen a lot of the players who are going to step up and stand out. At the beginning of the season, Bev Yanez wasn't a very well-known player, and I think everybody on our panel said to watch out for her all season, and that ended up being correct. That's so because everybody knows, Jess Fishlock, everybody knows Rachel Corsi, everybody knows Lauren Barnes at this point. Maybe if we see Merritt Mathias in there, I think maybe she's been a little bit quieter this season than I anticipated her to be. So not so much that she's lesser known, but if she gets to play up top tomorrow, she has been a little bit quieter than I think I expected her to be. So I'd go maybe Merritt Mathias for Seattle.
That's a good one. The one that I guess I kept thinking of is the player that we like said we kind of know everyone, but I guess it's a player that doesn't get the credit because they kind of do a lot of dirt. Keelan Winters.
Oh yeah.
I think she's one of those players that she's been so good, and you've even heard little mumbles about her getting a national team call up at times because she could play that center defensive mid role. I think she's one. She might pop up and get a header in the box somewhere. She's just been solid all season quietly, so that could be one that I was thinking about. But yes, it's like you said, it's weird because we know everyone now, kind of. So for us, but for someone on TV that's watching on TV that might be like, oh, I've heard of Kim Little maybe and Megan Rapinoe. Who else can I look for? So that's a good call with Mathias. I guess we're gonna go back to you, Courtney. Biggest thing that could hinder Seattle from that could cause Seattle to lose this game.
Well, the biggest thing that you think could cause Seattle to lose the game, I think that, well, kind of like I mentioned before, I think if they lose their cool and let Kansas City get into their heads or let themselves get in their heads or let the fans get into their heads. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are probably going to come from Seattle to support Seattle. Notice how I didn't say up or down. I just said come from Seattle.
I have a map. We're good.
Jen has a map. Of course, it's not geographically challenged today. But I do feel like they could have support with Portland being so close, but also like they're playing in Portland. I feel like a lot of people from Portland are going to come just to cheer for Kansas City. Plus, there's a high number of Kansas City fans coming also. So, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure they'll have support, but when you're in that environment, and I feel like you have people who are maybe like, I'm a Portland fan, but Portland, Seattle, we're going to cheer against Seattle. Yeah. They need to stay out of their own heads also because they do, if things start going south or things like that, they do kind of get flustered and that does affect them sometimes. So I think that's probably one of their biggest weaknesses is to just that and just giving Lauren Holiday too much time on the ball. I know that people have been kind of mixed on her performance this season, but she's definitely a playmaker, as she proved in last year's final also. And I just think if you give her too much time to kind of do things, that could be problematic for Seattle also.
Yep, I agree. I definitely agree with that with Seattle. It's like one of those things for me where I feel like I said, if they get frustrated, sometimes they might lose all focus. And because I've seen teams break their pressure before, and then it seems like Seattle is just like, oh, we've unlocked the key to them. Then they're just kind of a mess running around the field. But if they can kind of stay, I feel like I said, it's a big mental thing. We keep repeating it because we know Seattle's been the best team, but it's really going to be mental focus over anything. And in big games like this, players that make those mental mistakes, they usually cost them. Real good. I agree with you 100% on that, Courtney. Now let's talk about FC Kansas City a bit. So we're going to go back to you, Jen Carl. What does FC Kansas City have to do to win this game?
I feel like part of why Kansas City has been so boring is because they've been so predictable. You've kind of been able to figure out, okay, yep, Lauren Holiday's on the ball. She's going to hold it for a little while, dribble past a couple of defenders. Oh, she's switching the field. It's going to A-Rod. Okay. It's been very predictable throughout the season for them, and I think in order to beat Seattle, they're going to have to drop that. They're going to have to make themselves more unpredictable. They're going to have to find ways past that defense, and for Seattle, I think Hope Solo is going to be a crucial element here because through the NWSL season, through the World Cup, even through the Victory Tour, she's basically been back in between the posts making grass and or turf bracelets the whole time. She's really been challenged. So I think if Kansas City can put some pressure on her, get back in behind the defensive line and put some pressure on Hope Solo, they stand a good chance here because they don't get as frustrated as Seattle does. They're able to maintain a little bit more composure. And for them, it really is a neutral field. They're not walking into enemy territory here. They're going into a place where, it's going to have some Kansas City fans, it's going to have some Seattle fans, and it's going to have a whole lot of Portland fans. And Portland doesn't hate Kansas City. So, for them, they just need to focus. They need to make themselves more unpredictable than they have been, and they need to find ways to get in back behind, Corsi and Barnes and all of them.
And Courtney? Your thoughts on what they have to do to win?
Yeah, I think they just need to my biggest thing is converting their chances because I think that that's something that we've talked about on the show multiple times where people, they create a lot of chances and have trouble finishing them. And so it's obviously been better in the end of the season, especially in the semifinal, but that is something that has been problematic. They create a lot of chances but can't convert on them. And so I think especially with someone like Hope Solo in goal, they're going to have to make those chances count. So all their shots are going to have to be on target, not right at Hope Solo, not 6 feet over the net, not wide hitting the they need to be accurate with their chances. Because again, Hope Solo does kind of make errors sometimes also, but she's still one of the best keepers in the world, and so you have her back there, and I think that that you just need to make it count that much more. And so I think that they need to do that. They need to take advantage of. Again, they can get a little feisty too, but like Jen said, they don't get in their own head half as much as Seattle does. So I think just shutting down Kim Little, and not only just Kim Little. I'm going to say shutting down Kim Little because that's the assumption that everyone's going to be aware of that first. But I think just being able to change with Seattle's game plan. So if they shut down Kim Little, Seattle obviously goes to somebody else or multiple other people. They have to be able to adapt to that and not just keep focusing on Kim Little. They have to be able to kind of work on shutting down those other people as well. So those are some of the things I think that they need to really focus on the most, or just making their shots count.
Yep.
And being adaptable to the changes that Seattle will probably make to their game plan.
Yeah, for me it deals with their attack too more so than anything because I remember watching them all season and they would just break out, a nice little counter attack, and then that final ball and they would miss it, and then it's just like, wow, you were just one ball away. The easiest, sometimes, well, it's not the easiest, but it was just one ball away you think that they would be able to make and they wouldn't get it, and then the attack is over. And they would end up losing games or drawing games. And you're like, you had so many opportunities and just didn't make any of them count. So they can make some of these have to do against Seattle. Then they definitely have a chance to win, because there was times where they could have been very exciting, but they just never made it count a lot of the time. So they looked like a team where they were coasting and pretty boring to watch because it just never came through. But I think that maybe because they'll be playing, I guess it feels like in a pro crowd, maybe that'll jolt them a bit more, and they'll be, I guess, a little bit on point a bit. But if not, then they'll just suffer from the same thing they suffered through the whole season of just not making their shots and opportunities count. And you can't do that against Seattle. So that's what I think they'll have to do for sure. We will go with you, Jen, and we're going to say key players that will have to stand out for FC Kansas City.
Barnhart for sure. Barney's going to have a huge game, which she has like all season. But she's going to have a big game. Helvet's going to have a big game. Brune, I expect to see maybe a lot out of Becca Moros. For me, when we talked about key players for Seattle, we talked about mostly their front line, and I'm naming mostly the back line for Kansas City because I feel like Kansas City, if they can have one playmaker, whether it be Lauren Holiday or Amy Rodriguez or whoever up top, that can get in there and make that one chance against Seattle count, they have a chance to win it, but they're going to need that back line to save it enough for them to be able to make that one play, because Seattle's just going to continuously put pressure on them. It's what Seattle does best. They find ways to get the ball from their third up to their opponent's third all the time and just continuously pressure them. So I expect a lot out of the D-line and out of maybe some midfielders to take on a defensive role, and just kind of let the forwards do what they do when they get the ball. But I think it's going to be a very strong defensive performance from Kansas City if they want to come out on top.
And Courtney, any lesser-known players you think that the people should look out for that might need a big game to help them win?
I think it's hard to say lesser-known when you think of, like, Kansas City, because, I mean, they've all, especially with all the allocations they had gone during the World Cup, I think it's hard to say, like, lesser-known players just because they all stepped up so much. But like Jen mentioned, I would say Becca Morris is someone we don't necessarily talk about all the time, but she's feisty and she's quick and, she's just an excellent in her role. And she's played, she's been a defender, but she's played kind of around different parts of the field between her kind of pressing and things like that. But she's someone who I think, again, we don't necessarily mention a lot, but we recognize as an important player. And like Jen said, she's someone who definitely have to step up. I'm looking more for substitutes here for Kansas City. It depends on who starts and who they use. We haven't talked a lot about Timrack this season that much. She kind of had a bit of a slow season, but she had a big goal and good performance in the semifinal. So she'd be someone I'd look out for. And then, again, she was out for 6 weeks with a foot injury, but she grew before she went out. And I don't know, she hasn't had too much playing time when she's come back just because, she came back kind of from an injury. So I don't know what her role would be in the final, but if she can be in, if she comes in or is in the game, maybe if she starts or anything like that, is in the kind of form she was in, at the start of the season. Again, not a lesser known person because she was killing it all season until she got injured, but just someone who we haven't heard from for a while, who could, whether she starts or comes off the bench, could be a huge impact. And Liz Bogus is another one of those people who haven't played very much since the World Cup. Athletes have come back, but, she's someone who can prove to be a challenge also. So, we know most of the players on Kansas City, but I would just, for me, look at some of those players who haven't necessarily been that much of an impact this season, who potentially could step up big in the final.
Yep, I agree with you with that. Like some players like Erica Timrack, that's one, like you said, that had a season where some people said it wasn't her best, or they expected more out of her. I think it'd be nice if she had a major impact. Buskowski, she'll be one, especially if they do get up a lead, and she can really help protect that back line.
Mm-hmm.
Morrow. So yeah, you named all the ones that I was thinking of for the most part with them. It's going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening, because I think if FC Kansas City goes up first, then it's going to be nice to see if they really drop back a lot, and then depend on even some of those attacking players to really help defend that lead. So I think it's going to be a really good game. But now we're going to get on to our expectations for the game and then predict score. So who would like to go first? I am choosing that Spirit fan. Tell us what you think.
I said not it, so.
The nose.
Nose goes.
Yeah, I think I pretty much just summed up my expectation. I expect a very defensive game out of Kansas City and a very offensive game out of Seattle. I think Seattle's going to continue pressuring, doing what they have been all season. Kansas City is definitely going to need to play a major defensive role. I think for them, they're going to need to save the game. And I think their D-line is capable of doing that. They just need to step up and do it. And I think, for them, for either team, maybe it might come down to just one moment of brilliance. And that's, both of them have solid D-lines. Seattle, I think, has maybe a better forward line than Kansas City does. And, you can never count out players like Nicole Barnhart. She had a ridiculous shutout record this season. So I think, for me, it's going to come down to maybe that one moment from either team, either late in the game that ends up winning it, or maybe a little bit earlier in the game, like we saw in Seattle and Washington, that just kind of opens the floodgates. So I'm kind of expecting that one moment to happen, and I think maybe that one moment's going to come from Seattle.
And what is your score prediction now?
I'm going 2-1 for Seattle.
All right. Courtney?
Normally, I generally tend to side with Jen over here. However, this will be probably one of the rare times in life that I do not. Listen, I think it's going to be a really good game. I know we have mentioned about Kansas City being questionably entertaining, but I think this game could actually, if they're not entertaining themselves, could make them look entertaining. Just because I think that when you play a team like Seattle, I think that they themselves are so skilled and entertaining to watch that you kind of have to keep up, or you're going to get blown by, and that could they might not be offensively entertaining, but I think as far as if they're able to stop, if they want to win the game, they have to stop Seattle's offense. So I think we could see some great things from them in that regard. I agree with what you guys are saying. I agree that it's probably both semifinals kind of ended up with a fairly lopsided scoreline, but I don't think we're going to see that here at all. I think that, my thing is it's either going to be a late in the game kind of moment that happens, or I think, not even just saying earlier in the game, I just think early in the game period, which I hope doesn't happen, because that's kind of a boring game where someone scores within the first, 20 minutes or so, and then there's no other goal. I hope that's not really the case, but I think that's the potential for that is there, and I think that I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say 2-1 Kansas City.
And someone that was watching, her name is Heather. I was looking at the comments. Heather Gazi, she says, she likes my hat. Thank you. Appreciate it. And she predicts Seattle 2-1. So thank you, Heather, for watching. And now I guess it's my turn. It's one of these. This is so weird that we got a rematch in this league already. So it's we're already doing the nice little rivalry and stuff and getting the fans behind these two teams. I guess we're developing history with these two teams. But it's so weird because Seattle, you feel like it's going to be there depending on their attack. And we know that FC Kansas City is so well at defending. But for some reason, I always rival FC Kansas City in most situations, as I said, and I think we want to do it again. I'm sorry, Jen. We're going to leave you hanging a bit. But
always that guy.
Always that guy.
Now, listen, you were that guy early on and off the post, but I've been that guy with you for a lot of this season. But, yeah, sorry, you were definitely that guy.
That's all right.
By the way, wait a minute. Is DJ agreeing with me? Is that happening? Is this an off-the-post momentous, historical moment right now that he's actually, going to agree with what I said and not crap all over my prediction? Is that happening?
Well, you know what they say, that a broken clock is always right twice a day. So, yes, this is one moment. I will agree with you because you're right about that. And I just feel like there's going to be one of those things where they just have maybe 2 moments of magic, and that will be good enough, and they'll defend, and absorb the pressure. I keep feeling like it's going to almost play out the way that last year did a bit, where you're going to have A-Rod might have some amazing goal, and Lauren Holiday shows up out of nowhere, and everyone's going to be like, oh, my God, we forgot about her. But, yeah, she's still amazing, and she can retire into the sunset. But for championship.
Can I comment on that real quick? I mentioned this, but, everyone, I don't think anyone's forgot this, but it's a good point to mention that it is going to be Lauren Holiday's last professional, not like victory tour or whatever. It's going to be her last professional game or her last game with Kansas City. So I don't know if that's going to motivate her to kind of, not that she doesn't always put everything into a game, but I don't know if that's going to create some kind of Lauren Holiday magic here, the fact that this is the last time we're going to see her in a Kansas City uniform in the NWSL. So that's something to think about, I guess. And then you mentioned it, Lauren Holiday, that thought came in my head of, this is going to be her last game in the NWSL. And I don't know if that might make her want it a little bit more. It might muster up some sort of other magical things, just knowing it's her last game and the desire to want to go out with another championship. So
that unfortunately did not work for Nadine Ongerer and Rachel Van Hollebeck. So,
that's a whole other can of worms there. That's a whole other can of worms there. That's a whole other team of weird things. But that's true though. So, but it's a good point to bring up nonetheless. And obviously, like you said, it could go either way. You're right. It didn't play out for some of the other people who we know aren't coming back to NWSL. So, or soccer in general. So it's a good point.
Okay. Well, I think it actually sometimes I just sometimes always envision these things playing out like this because it seems pretty cool more so than anything. But it does seem cool if she would do that. Scores the game winner, goes out with holding a trophy. FC Kansas City becomes the first established dynasty in our league or whatever, and really builds the league so everyone can start hating them rather than still hating Portland, still hating Allie Long, which you all do. So this would be good.
My hating Portland's not going to change anytime soon. So.
Okay.
I don't hate Portland, so.
Fair enough. So this is I'm predicting 2-1 for SC Kansas City, and I think they're actually gonna finish. There's some good chances, or just create some good chances, and I think it's gonna be a great game. So everyone should definitely watch it. Jen Carl, tell us the time that the game will be, since people got it confused today.
The game will come on at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time.
So it's not today, people, even though we get to see it then.
It is tomorrow.
It is tomorrow. That is correct.
The way you remember that, tomorrow's a whole new month. Tomorrow begins October. It's October 1st, first day of October, not September 30th. There's no September 31st, October 1st.
Okay, so September 31st is the game, so look out for it. So on, people. That is the problem. We're going to talk about the coaching changes since I remember a few of you people mentioned it to me. And I was like, all right, we can talk about it. I saw a lot of the guys and off the post guys and gals on off the post talking about it, so I guess you all have like a little bit of opinions on these. I already can see that now. We're going to start with that Spirit fan first. Jump into the coaching carousel that is occurring. Any comments, concerns, stuff that's pissing you off?
I'm really sad to see Mark go. He's a phenomenal coach. I thought he was probably the most underrated coach in the NWSL. He's phenomenal. He's so good at what he does, and he's so good with all the players, with the fans, with the staff, with everybody. He's a great guy, great coach, and it's going to be really sad to see a Spirit season without him. I don't even have an inkling as to who might be coming in to replace him, so I can't make any kind of call on that. Hopefully not Paul Riley. Hopefully this is not like a coach swap. Like
don't even say that. Oh my God.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's not do that. Although then we might get Tobin to Washington. Yeah. My biggest hope is that I can like shoot Mark an email or something and be like, "Yo, you need to like ditch Leanne Sanderson," and that'll make life great, and I will be so happy, and he'll be happy because then he won't have to deal with her, and life will be great. But anyway.
Yeah. Real quick. No, I'm just kidding.
So for me, the hardest coach, stepping down or getting fired or whatever is definitely Mark Parsons departing from Washington. That sucks for all of us. He'll be missed, but I hope he goes on and does really great things. I'm sure he will. So as painful as it is, I wish him nothing but the best. Of course, Paul Riley. Not returning to Portland, no idea what's in store for him, but I think that is great for Portland because it opens the door for Mark Parsons to come in and coach this team that has phenomenal talent and for whatever reason just couldn't make anything work since the first season. So I For me, it was great. I've been calling for Paul Riley to step down all season. So now I think Portland is going to become a major force to be reckoned with again in the next season. And then, of course, Boston, with Tom Durkin no longer being in Boston. I think Boston is another team that people need to watch out for next season just because of the change in coaching staff. Things are going to get shaken up, I think, with allocation because we're looking at another expansion. So I think, Boston might get some extra players added to their roster that maybe they didn't have this season. So I think so far 2 out of the 3 teams that have had major coaching changes are going to be major forces next season. Washington, for me, the team is still phenomenal. Our assistant coaches are phenomenal. I don't know who's going to fill that head role, so I can't make a good call on Washington at the moment.
All right, and we have a few comments from Heather. She said, "Don't say coach swap," and Gin Spirit fam stick together. So good stuff. She said she was with you on the coaching stuff. So I guess she liked Parsons too. And Courtney, your comments concerns on the coaching merry-go-round.
Right. We'll start with Boston just because we know, as someone who's from Massachusetts, Boston for some reason is the exception of my Boston sports team love. I don't have anything against them. They just have not fallen under that category of I must cheer for you because you're a Massachusetts team. But I know this season was super rough for them, and I know from witnessing firsthand, doing media and dealing, seeing kind of the interaction on the sidelines and the team. I think Durkin stepping down was the best thing that could happen for Boston, to be just to the point, for whatever reason. And just not to say that he's a bad guy. I don't know him personally, but I don't think he was getting the most out of his players for whatever reason. We don't know necessarily what that is. So, good call. I am so excited that they got Matt Beard. I can't even, that's such a huge grab for them. He did such great things with Liverpool ladies, and so that's outstanding. He's definitely a great coach who can do a lot. I'm hoping he also manages to bring some of the some talent either from Liverpool or that he knows in the league over there over to the NWSL.
Any names?
Dowie.
Wait a minute, hold up. Now we're doing a Dowie conversation. Wait, this is my minute. So Natasha Dowie wished me happy birthday because she's one of my favorite female players, and it was one of the greatest moments of my. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, sorry, Courtney. Go.
That might be a bit ambitious, but I'm hoping he could bring that. That would be ideal for me. But that's anyone really. They're not, and as much as it sucks with the whole England not being in the Olympics thing. Their players are available all season, so there's that. So that should be a thing. Yeah. So hopefully, it's a good sign for Boston. Like I said, he's a great coach. He did a lot of great things in Liverpool. So he was manager of the year. They had 2 consecutive titles. He's great. So hopefully he can bring some talent over and help Boston because they just need it and they're sad. But not sad anymore because they have a great new coach. As far as Portland, yeah, I don't. Paul Riley, again, I think he's got a great soccer mind, but for some reason it just wasn't. He didn't get the results this year. Granted, he had a lot of people missing during the World Cup, but he had a lot of great players still there. So should have been able to at least make the playoffs, and it was time. So again, good choice by them. But Parsons, listen, I completely 110% understand why Parsons would go there, just because of the soccer culture. And all the fans and everything are amazing, and for the Spirit. I love. That's honestly probably my favorite place to go watch a game at the Soccerplex with the Spirit fans, and everything is amazing. But you can't beat the support that's out in Portland, both just in numbers of fans and being affiliated with MLS team and having those resources. It's a lot. Probably it's a good career advancement move for him. I completely understand why you'd go there. It hurts me because I'm not a huge fan of Portland. So, but I think it's just tough. It's a tough pill for Spirit people to swallow, just because he was one of those coaches who had like a great relationship with. And this is not me saying all coaches. You're just laughing at me, and I don't know why. It's because it's me talking. No, I'm just kidding. He was one of those coaches that was very connected with, from like people who worked with the team to like media to fans. Like he was very connected, and he had connections with, people from all of those avenues. And he was a very, like, I don't want to say like the people's coach. That makes me sound like I'm talking about The Rock over here, like, and whatever. But he was a very approachable individual, and he was very interactive, and he treated the fans and media and people volunteer, things like that. He was very good to all of them, and so I think it's just hard for the Spirit to have him go, just knowing that. And he did a lot for the team as well, and I think that he was a very accessible coach. I think he was like doing this when they were doing the Spirit chats. He hosted some of the Spirit chats like himself, and I think that was like hilarious. And so like I think it's just very hard for like the supporters, and I think it's hard for the team because he did so much with the team in the couple of years he was coach, starting off from when he took over, kind of mid-ish season. So definitely hard for the Spirit, and I understand why a lot of people are kind of upset, but he's a great guy and an outstanding coach and just individual, and ultimately, it sucks, but when you have that kind of love for someone, you just wish them the best, even if it is in Portland, and I am not a huge Portland fan, but, I hope that he gets the kind of love that he got in Washington, because he definitely deserves it, and I hope that he can do good things with the team there, even though I don't like him.
No, very well said. I just hope that it's not the recycling of coaches. Like we don't see Paul Riley end up in Boston or see him down in Washington. I hope that they bring in some other new names and give some other. Well, Boston's already taken care of, but you know what I mean. In other places, if firings happen, because we don't know what's really happening with Sky Blue, do we? Yet? So we'll see. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see partisans in Portland. I think it's going to be very awkward though, a bit. It's going to take time to adjust. I was so used to him in Washington, couldn't imagine seeing him leave. I thought he was going to stay there until they actually got over the hump, which I thought they were probably just a few steps away even this year, and they look so much more improved lately. So it's a sad thing, but I'm sure the Spirit will end up getting someone else that'll probably finish it. Hopefully someone that can finish it and take them the rest of the way. As for Boston, they're going to be very interesting to watch. They had so many young pieces, and they just weren't that good. Like they were a good team, like they had good players, certain pieces, but the whole team wasn't good. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them now. They got such a renowned coach in the England game. Hopefully he does bring some players. Hopefully he brings Natasha Dow. I will buy the jersey, and I will be the biggest Boston Breakers fan in the world. But
hey, will that be your team for next year then? If that's like the case,
she'll be. I'll follow the player, but not the team. You got to roll with Sky Blue Steel and see what happens.
Hey, what are your thoughts? I guess anyone on the potential for Jim Gabarra to come up to coach the Spirit? He did coach Washington Freedom.
Sure, you guys can have him. Have a nice day.
There's some people actually calling for like Tom Sermani to come coach the Spirit.
Oh, really?
Listen, there's actually. Well, here's the thing. I don't know if people are aware of this, but I read this Equalizer maybe, or if it wasn't Equalizer, it was Guardian Sport. It was either something that Equalizer posted or Caitlin Murray posted, but there were potential talks of, before she renewed her contract, of Pia coaching Portland, and Sermani was interested as well apparently, and they obviously went with. Well, I say obviously because like there's been no official announcement, but like the people who have been reporting he's going to Portland are extremely, extremely reliable. So like we just assume that that's a real thing, but because it most likely is, we're just waiting for it to be announced. But that was another thing that was thrown around, is that Sermani wanted to coach Portland. So whether that was Portland specifically, or he just wants to coach in the NWSL, is an interesting thing to bring up, I guess. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I can see him landing again, Sermani. I think he deserves it. I would like to see him what he does with a club team, actually. He'd probably be a pretty good coach. He definitely would try to develop the youth of that side. And who knows, throw him down there. If Orlando actually gets a team and they get a bunch of young pieces, let him go down there and build a team. That'd be really nice, actually. Give him just a fresh ballot to do what he wants to do with. I think that'd be perfect, actually, for Sermani.
That'd be a good option for him as well. I would definitely love to see him coach a team, though, for sure.
Yeah. So definitely.
For me, I might like to see one of our assistant coaches kind of step up. We have KJ, And I don't know if you guys have followed a lot of her this season, but she's phenomenal. She's so good. She's like kind of one of the voices behind Mark all season. You know, Kevin, our fitness coach, Lloyd, our goalkeeping coach, all of our coaching staff has just been phenomenal all year. So, and I think Mark started as an assistant coach. So I'd maybe like to see one of our assistant coaches step up and fill the role of our head coach.
Yeah, Mark was the coach of the Spirit Reserves, and then got bumped up when Mike Jordan got fired. So yeah, he was hired from within the Spirit system.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's good. Like I said, maybe they'll do some promote within if they keep that type of dynamic up. And I love when the clubs do those type of things where they try to keep it within, even with youth systems and everything for other teams. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be a real different league in the next 2 years with all the stuff that's coming, deals and all the Nike stuff you guys have probably heard already. But
there's been so much going on already, and the season technically hasn't even ended because we still have a final to play tomorrow. But there's been so much going on already. I can't wait to see when things really start kicking off with player. We've seen a lot of players go on loan, but when we start hearing about player moves, coaches changing, it's going to be a really interesting off season, I think, and exciting, especially when it comes to new teams coming in, expansion draft, and all that. It's going to be a great off season, I think.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, Courtney. So we'll see, and we're going to be all on it anytime something big pops up, like the whole Aussie thing that popped up. We'll try to jump on it and talk about it, and other little projects we're going to probably have involved off the post. So follow us in the off season as well. As for a gift, if you predict the score, make sure you post it on Facebook or Twitter. We will give you a brand new toothbrush. No, I'm just kidding, actually. We'll give you something better. But we can give you this if you want to. It's a nice little Colgate 316.
If you need a new toothbrush, that could be part of the prize.
So we'll throw that in there with the actual prize you're going to win. Look at that, boy. That's nice.
That's terrible.
Booyah! Off the Post has gotten that cheap lately since we gave away so much stuff. But no, we'll actually give you something good. So predict the score of the game. If it gets really close where we have tiebreakers, say your goal scorers too. That always helps. You give away jerseys, T-shirts, what else? Balls, tickets. Haven't we given away? We gave away Chicago tickets because we hung out with Kim Leiterberg in Chicago. She was real cool. We've done so many giveaways. And I'm like, it's free. It's not a gimmick. Just actually, just join in and you'll get something. So do that, and we'll actually give you a good prize for the final. And we'll start promoting it, I guess, a bit on social media probably tonight and then tomorrow or so forth. Other than that, do you girls have anything else to say, or is that yada yada?
No, I don't have anything else to say. Just the final should be really exciting, and DJ's probably going to say this, but we'll be back to discuss the final.
Yes,
Friday.
yes, we'll be back to discuss the final on Friday. You might see some people that you see. I'm doing this real quick back and forth to the school. And you might see some people that you know or might have never seen before. So definitely tune in. Hopefully they all can join us. Some of the people that we might have joining us. Some cool people. And other than that, off the post. I'm your host, DJ Red Reindeer Hat Fred. We'll be back again Friday, and then we'll be back again next, I believe it's Wednesday. It's another show.
Yes, Wednesday.
And you'll see that spirit fan, that magic spirit friend, Jen Curl, who people love to say, I see her at games. You will see Courtney, the one and only Courtney, who interacts with players on a daily basis like it's just nobody's business.
That's correct. That's not true at all.
This is a lie. But no, guys, seriously, we'll talk to you soon. Everyone throw the hand up, the right hand, and start that little wave.
Right hand.
Right. It's the right hand, and throw that little wave. And we will see you guys again. See ya. Take care, guys. Right.